Hi, everyone. I'm Carrie Kellerman, and with me today is Mary Grace from Virginia. How are you today, Mary?
Hi, I'm great, Carrie. Thanks for having me.
Happy to have you. I understand you got a very interesting phone call early last fall. Can you tell me about that?
Yes, yes. So actually, I got a visit and then a phone call. And this is what went down. I got home one day and I live with my elderly parents, so I'm like I guess like a basement dweller. And that's me, deplorable. And I help care for them. And they gave me a card and they said, "Hey, the sheriff came by." and and they said he wanted to talk to you. So I thought, well, that's interesting. What, I wonder why. So I said, no problem. I'll call them. And I called the sheriff. He said, "Hey, I need to let you know, it's my duty to let you know that you have been targeted on a kill list put out by ISIS."
Oh my gosh. My
I
gosh.
know. I said the same thing. I just thought, wait a minute. Can you say that again? What? And he said, "You've been targeted on a kill list that's put out by ISIS, and you're one of several people in the state out of a larger number. And we can't really handle it from here, so you need to call the FBI. Here's the director's
Oh
number."
my
And
gosh.
not director call me, but the director of our area.
Yeah.
And so, I hung up. I said, "Thank you very much." Okay. so so I called the FBI director and he picks up, um and we get on the phone and he said, "Yeah, it's my duty to let everybody know, and I disseminated this list to the sheriff in your area, and here's what's happening." And so this is what he told me. He said, we take care of domestic law enforcement issues, right? And so if there's ever any kind of threat on U.S. soil, the FBI gets involved, obviously.
Right.
And so they're constantly, they have agents who are constantly involved in cyber issues. And so they're monitoring different chat rooms and
Okay.
forums and things like that. Well, the way that this is what he explained, the way that ISIS and Al Qaeda and these radical groups radicalize people in the US is that they reach out to them through these forums and membership groups and chat rooms. Okay. And so what they do is, it's like any chat room you're in or any group, Facebook group, private group, they're constantly being bombarded with the propaganda. And that's how you have these lone people that get radicalized, like in their living room in Kansas, right? Because they belong to these groups. And that's where one of the concerns with like homegrown terrorism comes in, is because they can reach them from anywhere in the world. So you may have a terror cell that's based in Pakistan or, somewhere in the Hindu Kush over in, between the border of Pakistan and India, wherever.
Right.
You've got them sitting there and they're pushing out all this content to people in the West who are susceptible to getting radicalized,
Right.
And so that's the backstory. And the FBI is constantly monitoring these things.
Right.
And so over time, what these internet trolls are doing is they're monitoring people's social media profiles, and they're looking for keywords and actions of innocent people. They usually monitor military, law enforcement, government workers, things like that, DOD.
Right.
State Department, that kind of thing. And they're always looking for people they can target. And when they get enough people on a list, they will publish a list on these websites, and they call it a kill list. And they say they'll put out these lists, and they'll put out a call to action. And so anybody that belongs to these forums and internet chat rooms will see this list. And so if you're, if well, let's look at the case of the Orlando killer. Okay.
Right.
He was living in Orlando, but more than likely he was involved with some internet groups. And so he had access to information that maybe he wouldn't have had access to before the internet. Okay.
Okay.
And so it was easier to radicalize him.
Right.
Right. And so when these terror groups put out a list like that, what they're counting on is for somebody like that guy to take up the call to arms
Oh my
and go out and find these people
gosh.
and execute a murder or a terrorist act. And then when that takes place, then ISIS claims responsibility. Okay. So you follow me?
Yes,
That's
I
what
do.
that's what FBI explained to me.
But the burning question for me, how did your name, like if they're searching
Right.
for keywords, do you know which words you were using that made them notice you, or?
Probably okay. When I spoke to the director, we were trying to brainstorm and go back and kind of think about my internet activity and things like that. And what I believe is that I had made some comments on Facebook. I wasn't really posting my own content. I generally would go into other people's posts and comment.
Right.
And some of the keywords I believe they're looking for, anytime you mention Islamic terrorism or ISIS or even Muslim, right?
Okay.
Those are things they're looking for. And then, of course, they're going to trace it back to the content. And, I'm not somebody that's going to have a politically correct opinion of Islam. And so when they see my comments on these threads, I'm pretty outspoken, I'm pretty articulate.
Sure.
Then they're going to look at my profile and that's how they're going to get my information. The crazy thing is though, that they had my name, they had my contact information. And it was, right down to my city. So of course that's what they do. They have hackers that are hired to do this. And so if you see, like in this past week, we've actually seen people on Twitter who have been doxxed because people have been mad at them and they put out their information.
Right.
That's basically what these hackers are doing.
Okay.
They're doxing you and they're putting your information on a list that's accessible on these forums, on these chat
and
rooms.
just so that people listening who don't know what doxing means, it means
that hackers or internet trolls will get access to your personal information or the information of your family members.
Okay.
So personal information being address, phone number, email address. So not just your social media contacts.
Right.
Your actual physical information.
Okay.
And so that's a way.
And they make it public, right?
They make it public, right? And in this case, they make that information public on a long list, and they literally call it a kill list, and they publish this list.
Awful.
And the list that I ended up on was a list of 800 people. And the thing that really stood out to the FBI director and the sheriff was that this list was comprised entirely of civilians.
Oh my
gosh. And it was the first such list that they had seen. Most every list they had before was, like I said, civil service, State Department, former military, law enforcement, that kind of thing.
My gosh.
And so it was just one of those things.
Yeah.
When he first told me, I actually thought, I'll be honest, I thought, well, damn, I had a little sense of pride because I thought, I believe in standing up for what I believe in, and I'm not afraid of a fight. And, my family's been in Virginia for 11 generations, and I've had family members who fought in every war since the Revolutionary War. And so that, to me, it's really important to stand on principle. And sometimes you draw the attention of people that you don't really want to draw the attention. But that's just what it means. When you stand on truth, you're not always popular. And in some cases, you end up having a target on your back, right? Now, that being said, I'm kind of a private person, but no more. But I felt like, well, obviously I've hit a nerve. And sometimes Bill says that on the show, that when you're really, and you've said that too, when you're over the target, the trolls start to come out.
That's true.
And this is obviously a situation where I was clearly over the target.
Yes, you were.
And I was hitting some nerves that people didn't want exposed.
Okay, so this was all before the election last fall, right? Just right before the election. And what did they advise you to do?
They advised me to really rein in my social media profiles and to go in and look at my privacy settings and to change my social media behavior and action. And so I made a decision at that time that I would restrict any and all of my political commentary, political/religious, Islam is one and the same, to Twitter. And at that, and when I did that, I changed my Twitter profile. I changed my name. I don't use my real name on Twitter. I don't have my email address or anything like that on Twitter. And so that was a big step that I took. I made my Instagram private. You have to request. You can't see anything on Instagram. I'm not that active there anyway. And then on Facebook, I restricted my circle on Facebook, and I limited my activity basically to puppy dogs and rainbows. That's all I do on Facebook. And a unicorn here and there. But I'm apolitical on Facebook. And that's really hard, and especially going into the election. But it was good timing, because basically anything you say on Facebook, people were attacking so hard that anytime I wanted to talk to somebody about politics, I would just DM them. And I still do. I don't do any more of that on Facebook. So, because people are willing, especially on that platform, they're just willfully blind.
Okay, I have one question about the privacy settings, or the settings. Did they say anything to you about your GPS being on or off?
We didn't talk about that. It is a concern, but I'll be honest with you. I think that when it comes to GPS or location or anything, I think, unless you have a 1970s, Toyota Land Cruiser with like analog controls, you're screwed. I mean, my ex-husband worked in IT, and so I know probably a lot more than most people know about how that works. And when the news came out that this spyware was in the Samsung smart TVs and things like that, it didn't surprise me.
You weren't surprised.
No. And I will say this to listeners, that you need to be careful about what you're doing online and in public.
Yes.
And one of the things that I do on my laptop is I have a piece of tape over the camera. And I learned that from my ex-husband. He used to do virus removal, and the first thing he would do when he brought home a laptop was put a piece of duct tape over the camera, because that's where viruses get in. And if somebody wants to spy on you, they're going to plant a virus that accesses your camera. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, if they spy on me, it's going to be pretty boring. But still, you don't want that breach of privacy. And as far as GPS goes, location services, the truth is, even if you're with the modern phones and devices, even when they're turned off, I'm not sure that they're entirely untraceable. I mean, if you want to be untraceable, you need to go get, a candy bar phone with a SIM card where you can take the battery out. And like live the spy life, you have a phone in your shoe. But so he didn't really talk about that. But what he did say, and I think this is important, is that, you really need to be aware of your privacy settings, especially on Facebook. And because people are sharing a lot on that platform, and Instagram, and I would say Snapchat too. I'm not on Snapchat as much, but think about what you're sharing, and think about the images, think about location. I see people putting posts of their children and where they are and their children's names. Don't do that, right?
Yeah.
This, if you're smart, if you want to put your children, don't call them by their name. Don't, it's just like if you have your kids walking around with their name on their backpack.
Yeah.
You're just asking for trouble.
Yeah.
So, so unfortunately we have to get in the mindset of criminals and think, what is a criminal? What is a creepy jihad guy looking for when he looks at my profile?
Gee.
And so it's made me more aware.
Well, yeah. I mean, if somebody knocks on your door and says you're on a kill list, I would just be petrified. So how do you feel now? Do you feel safe? Do you feel like this is something that is past or?
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking to you.
Yeah.
So
you're a little more relaxed now.
I have become, well, again, I don't use my real name on Twitter.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not naive enough to think that anybody who really wanted to hack into my Twitter and find out who I am, they already know, right? And so that brings me to the fact that, I have a very strong faith. I'm a Christian. I know that I walk with God.
Yeah.
And I think there's a fine line between being foolhardy and being certain of who you are and whose you are.
Yes.
And so I don't live my life in fear. I live my life from a place of integrity. And when I feel like I have to speak the truth, I do it. But I do it in a measured way.
Yeah.
And I think about where I am, what the platform is. Even in person, there are places where I speak up and places where I don't.
Yeah.
And so it's just a matter of exercising wisdom, I think. And, when you get a little older, you get a little bit better at that.
Well, I certainly hope so.
I don't know. There's some days, though, when I just go, well, shouldn't have said that. Oh, well, sorry, not sorry.
Oh, goodness. Well, we're glad that the tape is off your camera. And we're glad that you are still with us and that the list hasn't worked or, whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm just so grateful for your time today and your sharing this story with us.
You.
And just your word of caution and wisdom. It's very important for a lot of us to hear that. So great message today. And if somebody does want to find your made up Twitter name on Twitter, how would they do it?
So it's at Mary Joya Grace, and that's MaryGioia Grace, Grace. And Gioia, if you speak Italian, it means joy.
That's beautiful.
So
beautiful. Well, again, thank you for your time today, and we appreciate
Carrie.
your story. And no more lists.
Don't be scared. Be prepared.
There you go. Perfectly said. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Carrie. Bye.